Welcome, Bob. How you doing?
Hey, Peachy, how about you?
I am doing awesome. So you're starting to become kind of a big deal here in the MSP space.
Do you watch Cops? Because that's usually where people see me before.
Yeah, this is going to be great, man. You and I are both just sarcastic jokes every other line we say. This is going to be perfect.
Or we will never speak of this again.
Well, somebody will, because somebody might watch this.
There you go.
I'm told that sometimes people watch my YouTube. Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Good.
So Bob, you are in Hudson, Ohio. Is that correct?
Well, actually, we used to be in Hudson. Now we're in Stowe, which is literally a mile and a half south. So
yes.
we're basically right between Cleveland and Akron in Ohio.
So the interesting thing is, I had an office when my MSP was like really my focus. I had an office in Cuyahoga Falls. We were frenemies. We were competitors.
The term I like to use is coopetition.
I like that.
Because in certain circumstances, you'll have two organizations that will compete in a healthy way, in an appropriate way. I hate you entirely. And then in other cases, you'll cooperate because you find a way to work, to put some synergy together and make things happen. And I first heard that from Philippe Kahn, who was the CEO of Borland. I'm dating myself. Back in the 90s, and he was talking about how they worked with Microsoft. Now, of course, Borland is pretty much trashed and burned, and Microsoft not so much. So it shows you how well the strategy worked.
Well, these things happen. So, I remember one of your sales guys, he played guitar. Maybe it was a gym. I think he's retired now, too.
Yeah, John.
That's what it is, John.
Yep.
He ended up giving me a referral to somebody that just wasn't gonna meet your mold, so to speak. Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, I mean, these guys are just wimps. They're sissies. They're not gonna take this company and mold them. They just want somebody that already fits it. So I took them on, and they were a client of mine for like 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun. And I finally said, all right, look, I'm not going to make, $9 a month selling you antivirus and drop everything I'm doing because you want as needed support anymore. They just didn't get it because they had a controller who thought he knew everything he needed to know. And then like the owner's son was, mid 30s, like maybe around my age. So they've got people that are like tech savvy and they know enough to be dangerous, but that's the problem is it's dangerous.
Right.
And I finally said, if you want to work with me, here's my rates for us to keep moving forward. And I gave them some MSP rates, and they were shocked that what they were spending with me, maybe every 2 or 3 years is what I wanted every month. And they went and found somebody else. And bless their heart.
Absolutely. Have nothing but the best for all of them in their road away from us.
Yeah. So that's my story of how I know Bob, everyone. And Bob's like, who's this guy? Because I run whatever a smaller MSP, and I've shut down that office. I moved to Medina, so I'm in a different county as you now. Last night, I don't know what weather was like for you, but there was a tornado touchdown in Brunswick. South Carpenter is really, there's trees down, there's Medina Square, there's debris all over. There's about 90,000 people without power right now in Medina County that I'm aware of. First Energy made a statement. So thankfully, I have power. My friends that are on the other side of Route 57 don't have power. And there's all kinds of, like the Summa Hospital, it's a little place. I don't know if you've heard of it. They don't have power in the building. So like all the like doctor's offices, physical therapy offices, like they're all closed. The hospital itself is running on its generator, but they don't let the suites that are rented out to like non-hospital stuff, they don't let those run off generator.
And you hate to say this, which means I'm going to.
Oh, of course.
But you almost are like, well, thank God it's a good old-fashioned natural weather disaster.
What?
You know, there's no infection, there's no testing, there's no social distancing, there's just trees down and power loss and all that. Oh, the good old days.
Yeah, but you know, this last night as the tornado sirens going off, and I woke
there's that.
And I woke the kids up at 11:40, and we all huddled in the bathroom while we wait for the weather thing.
Did it together.
Yeah,
there was no 6 foot distance.
Yeah,
and I'm kidding. I'm glad to hear you're all right and all that. And we got, so that was basically, for those of you who are not in Ohio or not from Ohio, we get a little bit of everything. It doesn't matter what it is. We're not flat. We don't have mountains. We have hills. We don't have oceans. We have lakes. We don't have this. We don't have that. But we've got a little bit of everything, and that includes, we get some really great tornado weather that will come through, but not a lot of it.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, because, you know, with our tornado weather.
You just went off sound.
Yeah, I'm yelling at my daughter. The joys of working from home.
Uh-huh. How old?
So my daughter, she likes to go cause mischief whenever I get onto these podcast recordings, and my wife is outside. Uh-huh. So she's not even aware that it's 12 and that we're doing this to know. In fact, you should just go get her and let her know for me, please, that it's noon. I'm recording. You're a pain in my ass. I love you. Sorry for making lunch so I don't pester you to make it for me. She's 14.
14?
She's 14, going on 30, and 5 all at once.
and the thing is, they will choose which one it is.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Okay? Now, absolutely.
I outsourced my kids. Okay.
You outsourced your kids?
I outsourced my kids. It seemed like the thing to do. My wife and I met, and she had 3 daughters, the youngest of which was 14 at the time, and I had 2 cats. And I thought it was an even trade, and this is back in 2000, give or take. And the cats are now dead. But I still have the 3 daughters, and I've got 3 daughters and 6 grandkids.
Wow, good for you, man.
I tell you, it is, and they're my daughters. I love them, all of that kind of thing. But it's one of those where I got dumped into the deep end because I went from 2 cats to the whole kid thing, and man, does your brain get rewired?
It certainly does. So we adopted. We were foster parents, so we got thrown into the deep end too. She was 9 or 8. I don't know. She was not little. Like we didn't get her when she was an infant. She was already, in 4th grade when she moved in with us, and it has definitely been a roller coaster, but we wouldn't change anything for the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And mine was 14, 17, and 20, and now my oldest grandson is, I'll say, finishing up. I'm not quite sure what the status is. His first year in college. You
have a grandson finishing college.
Finished his first year, freshman year.
Wow.
Down to my youngest granddaughter is 2.5 going on 30.
Oh boy. So, I got to say, you don't look that old, Bob. And
my wife gets that a lot more than I do. And it's funny because my wife is a bit younger than I am.
Okay.
And we get that. And it's funny because, you really do. There is a ridiculous transition, especially when you get dumped into the deep end, whether it be from a foster parent standpoint or from a outsourcing, as I call it, standpoint. And it's just interesting. And I'm going to switch over to business now. I'm going to segue.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to going from a technician in a business to being the owner of a business. Your mind absolutely gets rewired.
It's so true, because I remembered when I was working for an IT company out of Akron, and I kept thinking to myself, man, this guy's an idiot. Thinking about the owner, this guy's an idiot. Why am I using a 6-year-old Dell Latitude? Or no, he had us using, they weren't even Lenovo's, they were IBM ThinkPads.
Uh-huh.
And this was back in 2009 when Lenovo had already started making them, and they were like the T40 or whatever. Like it was just really old. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it was a 2004 laptop we're using in 2008. And I'm like, man, this guy just needs to spend a few $1,000s and get us some laptops.
It's
Not
so
realizing,
easy.
because I just assumed that this guy's got, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars just laying around in a bank account. Little did I know, employees are expensive.
I know, and they're really annoying. And the same thing's true with kids who are thinking that you've got, X number of dollars or X amount of time to go take care of whatever their need is.
That's
and
so
then
true.
When they get it, because we love it when our kids start complaining about their kids. Mm-hmm. And we're like, yeah. And we actually give our grandkids advice on how to really screw with their parents.
Oh, see, I don't know if I could do that. I don't think my mom lives down in Texas, so she doesn't really get to see them. Mm-hmm. But my mother-in-law, I actually like my mother-in-law, which is a crazy thing to say, I know. But she and her husband spoil their grandkids. Like they're so excited to have grandkids. They moved back up from Myrtle Beach a year-ish ago, so they moved here just because they wanted to be near the grandkids.
Oh, absolutely.
And they were
and we want to see the grandkids. We want to play with them. We want to whatever, muck with their brains, all that kind of thing. But we also want them to traumatize their parents, our children, in retaliation, because that's just a rite of passage, and that's what we want to have happen. So that it's whether or not you know it, whenever your kids act up, they're acting up on advice of your parents.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. Suck it up, sunshine.
I don't think we're going to be friends, Bob.
That's okay. It's a very exclusive club, and as soon as I end up with a member in that Friend of Bob club, I'll let you know.
That's fair.
But it is interesting. And I went through the same experience with you as far as and I came from a different perspective in the sense that I did IT management, I was CIO, all that kind of fun stuff. And then I went out and started doing the consulting thing as a one-man shop, and then started Simplex IT, the MSP, in 2007. But I remember I was at a client site that I was there on request of another consultant. They had a real bad exchange problem. They couldn't figure it out. So they asked me to come out and take a look. And the owner of the IT consulting firm, I don't think they were a managed service provider. This would have been about 2005. He met me there, and he was fuddling. He was trying to do some stuff to help me. And he was obviously having problems. He was not an exchange guy. And I remember thinking to myself, how can he possibly own an IT consulting firm? Because he doesn't know the tech. He's really fuddling. It's just so embarrassing. I wish to God that I remembered that guy's name, because I owe him, and I didn't tell him, it probably came across, but I didn't tell him, I didn't say anything. But how could you possibly own an IT firm and not be an absolute tech expert? I owe that person such a ridiculous apology.
Yeah, because you start to realize all of the things you don't know, because, once you've got 100 different companies you're supporting, you're going to realize they all don't use the exact same thing.
Well, and plus, you're going to stop doing it because you've got people who are going to be better than you at it. There is, and I kid you not, in our tech room, and we're about 16, 18 people, depending upon full-time, part-time, and of them, about 12 are techs. And there is, on one of the whiteboards in the tech room, there is a little section reserved, things Bob is not allowed to touch. And there's a list of things, and some of it's my handwriting, that, don't get Bob involved in the tech stuff. He's not as good as he thinks he is.
That's phenomenal.
And that's okay. I think that's great because I'm working on the business instead of for the business.
And that's the thing. I thought the exact same thing with the owner of my place when I was employed. I remember, we're working on Windows XP, and he's given us like Windows 98 advice.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Please stop talking.
Now, see, from a cultural standpoint, and this is important, I make no bones about the fact that I should not be the one to give advice on things. So I will be able to come in and say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? But I'm basically when you guys are out of your smart stuff that you know because it's, have you thought about this? So I'm basically the out of the box person. But they know if I'm being stupid, call me on it. Because I don't want to waste their time to think, oh, they have to listen to the boss. And I don't want to waste my time thinking that I'm actually adding value to the conversation when I'm not. My ego is a mile thick, and there's nothing they can do to dent that puppy.
Well, that's good to know. Speaking of your ego, Bob, you wrote a book, didn't you? Three books?
I have 3 books. You think I'd have them out? My third one just came out. I have, where are they? There. The first book I wrote was 3 years ago, and that was CEO Survival Guide to Information Technology. Mm-hmm. Then last year, we're doing a lot of work with co-managed IT. So I came out with the MSP's Survival Guide to Co-managed IT Services. And then finally last week, or week before, my third one, I Don't Want Your Job, is Co-managed IT Services the right fit for you?
That is amazing.
Yep.
So can you hold up the first 2 books side by side for me?
Yep.
Okay, because I say that because for some reason I thought they had the identical cover, just different words, but no, they are different.
No,
they're just red. They're just both red. That's the only.
Right, and it was one of those where we wanted the same kind of flavor. They're actually written for 2 totally different groups. The first one is the CEO's Guide. That's for us to give to a potential managed service client, and it's written specifically for the CEO that needs to understand IT but doesn't want to. And one of the problems that we've seen a lot in the industry in general is our clients, a lot of the CEOs want to abdicate the technology discussion. They basically just, I don't want to know. I just want it to work. It shouldn't be this hard, blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, a lot of IT, we're so willing to take that on, where we shouldn't. It's business questions. And so this basically tries to bridge that gap. So it's not written for a CEO who wants to be a geek. It's written for a CEO who doesn't want to be a geek, but needs to understand stuff. So why did I write this? I wrote this because it's hopefully a demonstration to a potential client that, no, we really do mean what we say when we want to communicate stuff to you. We're not going to be condescending, blah, blah, blah. The co-managed thing, we've had a lot of success selling managed services and true managed services to an organization that already has an internal IT department and kind of partner with them. And so what made perfectly good sense to me for some stupid, idiotic reason was when we have this kind of real competitive advantage, hey, let's tell all our competitors about how to do it. Idiot. So this is actually a guide for MSPs who want to become more involved with co-managed, with commits. And companies like Datto's really bought hook, line, and sinker into it. So has Sophos and some other vendors. And so this basically is a handbook on how to do it, marketing, selling, service. And then I wrote the book I should have written before I wrote the second one. This is actually written for the internal IT person, because the first question is, we're looking to take their job, because historically that's what managed services did. So this really talks about the co-managed IT model, and from the internal IT person's perspective, and why we really aren't looking to take their job, and it really is a partnership and cooperation thing.
That is amazing. So did you actually write these books, or did you hire someone? Who do I talk to write a book for me?
The quick answer is yes, I wrote them.
Okay.
Now, let's get to the caveat.
Mm-hmm.
The second and the third book, I wrote those completely from scratch by myself, all that. The first one, I actually hired a coach. And what the coach did was they had this program where they would put you through this process and you would more or less write the book. And what you did was, what is a book? First of all, a book is, who's your audience? You want to write a book for the audience. And my audience is very clear. I want CEOs who don't want to be geeks. And I want to communicate to them what are the geek things, business things that they need to understand. Okay, cool. That's our concept. Then it comes down to, what are 10 topics you want to communicate? Okay, topic 1, 2, 3, 4, security, backups, business continuity, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now we have our chapters. And for each one of those chapters, what are 4 or 5 questions that you want to answer as part of those chapters? Okay, here's questions. Now, from that's a book. That's your book right there. And then what she did was she then interviewed the bejeebers out of me for hours with each of those chapters with follow-up questions and all that, and then transcribed that. And this is where it's kind of like a ghostwriter, but not really.
Whoops. It really was your words.
Absolutely.
It was just somebody helping you through the process.
Right.
And they literally have a process that they took you through to
Right.
turn your words into something that is readable and not
close. So close. So I get this. Here's the first pass of the book. Isn't it wonderful? And I read it. It was crap. It was horrible. And for 2 reasons. One is there were sections where the person who was transcribing obviously didn't have a clue as to what it was what I was saying, and totally reinvented it and all that kind of fun stuff. And it was absolutely horrible. The other half, the person absolutely got 100% nailed what I was trying to say, and I was off my rocker. So I ended up with this book, and it was horrible. And so I said, I got to redo this. So I ended up using maybe 10% of the content from this and rewrote the whole bloody thing. And it took me about 5 or 6 months to do that. And so at the end of the day, I wrote this book, no question, no ifs, ands, or buts. I went through this process. I paid a lot of money for that process. And I don't think I would have done it without going through it. So it's one of those where I'm happy I went through the process. If I could do it over again, I probably would have done it differently. But
so you're happy you went through the process because maybe the process taught you something.
Yeah.
But the end result from the initial process was garbage.
Right, exactly. If we would have treated it as the end result, it would be horrible and awful and all that kind of thing.
And you never would have written a book again.
What's that?
And you never would have written a book again.
Absolutely. I would have changed my name and all of that. What I ended up with was good. Now, I then ended up, I'm an Amazon bestseller for all 3 books, which really tells you don't ever get impressed by someone who tells you they're an Amazon bestseller.
Yeah, I've kind of learned that because I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was, and I just want to say, I don't mean anything bad about this because I've got a lot of great things to say about them. So I think Robin Robbins is doing some type of book writing thing where like they're letting 10 or 20 MSPs get together and they're going in like halvesies, you know what I mean? Like they're all thrown in to have a book written. So like each MSP gets to write like a chapter of this book. And then they're all listed as authors, which I'm confused by because like you each get like, I think you get your own copy of the book that says like you're the author along with a couple other people that are doing it. And then like Robin Robbins is probably one of the authors too. And then so each MSP, and I could be completely off with this.
It's approximate, and I'm a Robin Robbins fan. Okay,
yeah.
I'm a member of her club and use it and all of that, and work with her and all that kind of fun stuff. And yeah, the book program that you're talking about, and this gets into some of the nuances of some of this stuff. And first of all, I've seen other marketing programs that take it much further than she does.
Sure.
And I want to be really, really clear here. In no way, shape, or form am I accusing Robin of doing anything. She is a very, very straight shooter. Okay.
Robin's awesome.
Oh,
she truly is. She's done a lot for the MSP community. I think her program's fantastic. You should sign up for it if you're not a member. I bet now is a great time to buy something like that too, because I hear they're completely redoing all the content with like fresh stuff.
So let's finish up the book and then let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
So,
I have ADD. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Squirrel. So essentially, what's happening is when you think about when we think about presenting to a potential client, one of the biggest things, and this is a huge challenge, I don't care what industry, what service you're in, whatever, is what makes you different, what makes you unique, what's your value add, what's your value proposition that proves that you're going to bring something to the table that's going to be different than the other schmucks who are in the same room, basically saying, yes, we care about you as a customer. Yes, we're up to date. Yes, you know, who's not going to say that? And one of the things is the book. Okay. Now, the way she's got it is that you may not have the resources to write an entire book, but you got the resources to write part of one. That's where you get into the whole chapter thing. And you brought this up. I didn't, because I have no idea if we're supposed to share what Robin, you know, the secret sauce behind what Robin does or not. But for you to basically say you're an author, you're a contributor to this book, still sets you up against someone who doesn't have any book whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely. You know? So, but the thing that I found interesting was they basically, like, they say they guarantee that you're going to be an Amazon bestseller and this and that.
So, okay, let's talk about that, because I think that's funny. And again, nothing against Robin or
I don't think it takes much.
Well, I can tell you, it doesn't. So when we talk about bestseller, the whole concept of bestseller, based on from Amazon's definition, is when you publish a book on Amazon. And again, I'm talking about my experience. Okay,
sure.
So when you publish a book, you self-publish through basically Kindle, and you then push it up to Amazon. You're going to specify which subcategories, and I think you can basically get 3 subcategories, subcategories, you know, business and technology, you know, whatever, that you're going to publish your book at. Now, each subcategory has 2 bestseller metrics. One is all-time bestseller. Guess what? I'm not an all-time bestseller in any of the categories. Okay. The other is newly published bestseller, which takes a look at the sales metrics for a book that was recently published in that specific subcategory, which means if you're in a subcategory that doesn't have a lot of traffic, you could be a bestseller. And what happens is they look at the sales, not in terms of number of units ordered, but number of orders placed over a short period of time. And that period of time, I think, is less than a day, but I'm not sure. So what happens is if I go on, so I ran into this because I cared about this for my first book, because I haven't put #1 bestseller on it. I can't put Amazon logo on it, okay, because Amazon doesn't want you to say that. So what you do is I wanted my clients to have the copy of the book. So I was going to buy, 100, 150 copies and give them all the book. Well, that would count as 1 order. Eek. Not 150. And so what these folks tell you who help you publicize your book is they say, go talk to all your family and friends. Well, we've already talked. I don't have any friends. And my family aren't my friends either. So nobody's going to buy my book if I ask them to, say politely or whatever. But they want you to buy your book at a period of time. You decide when. So the idea was, and I went out to my clients. I kid you not. I sent them an email. And I said, look, I'm trying to be an Amazon bestseller. I want you guys all to have the copy of the book. So here's what I'll do. If you buy the book on Wednesday morning from 8 till noon, send me a copy of the receipt. I'll credit your company bill for $20, whatever a little bit more than whatever the book will cost. Plus, I'll send you a Starbucks card for the same amount. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm basically paying people to buy the book, and I'm paying a lot more than I would have paid if I just would have bought the damn thing.
Now, what if you would have placed 150 individual orders?
It would. Well, first of all, I think it actually tracks based on the credit card and the like, so it still would have figured it out. So anyway, but I got like 40 people to buy the book. Okay, so I ended up paying like at least double if I would have bought the book, I would have bought it from Kindle for a lot less.
Sure.
So I ended up paying through the nose. I ended up being a bestseller. And you have to go to the Amazon site and keep refreshing. They'll put up a little star and a logo that you're a bestseller. Then you have to screen capture it. That's the only way you're going to know if you're an Amazon bestseller. They don't keep track of it. They don't do anything.
Okay. Now, does that go away after a while? The star and the bestseller?
Whenever the next one becomes the bestseller. It never identifies your book. It identifies the bestsellers, which could include your book. So once you fall off the list, you're off the list.
So I suspect because Amazon is smart enough to do very like granular categories, that you're also in categories that include guys like, Carl Palachuk. And so I suspect that he's probably like an all-time bestseller.
They don't get that granular. They really only go, I think, 2 or 3 levels.
Oh, okay.
So because they're not catering to the authors, they don't give a damn about us. They're catering to the people who are buying. So they want to make it easier. They don't want to have a sub category that only has 3 books over the past 4 years, because then it looks like they're not serving their customers.
That makes absolute sense.
Okay.
That makes absolute sense.
So for my second book, I didn't care. I did not care whatsoever if it was a bestseller or not. So I told everybody, hey, it's getting, I was a bestseller. And as far as I could tell, it took me 15 books. So 15 books being sold over a period of a day or two. I'm an Amazon bestseller for my second book. Okay, cool. My third book. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was 7. It was 7 books. It took 7 books to be an Amazon bestseller.
7 books.
7.
That really tells you how many books aren't being sold.
Yeah. So then this book I came out with, I didn't even bother posting it. And I got Amazon bestseller. I was the only one, and I bought just copies so I can give to potential clients. So that counted as 1. And I was an Amazon bestseller on one of the categories. So when someone tells you they're an Amazon bestseller, and that's the only street cred that they're quoting, take it for a grain of salt. And it's funny.
It is, yeah.
It's just funny.
Now, was that, I'm not a member of Robin Robbins, so right. I just find it fascinating, and to be perfectly honest, So I think for some reason I'm under the impression that program that she did was also saying it would be a New York Times bestseller.
That one may be true, and there's no question whatsoever that the mechanics and what she would do in order to help publicize the book is going to be significantly more than you or I could do.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you go in and do it with a small group of people.
Absolutely. Well, and plus she can go out and go to her networking group, which is, thousands, and say, hey, everybody support these people by going out and buying the individual book.
Yeah. So
all sorts of things that she can do. Yeah. And again, it's one of those, and to get back to your point, Robin has, and let's talk about the industry for a second. We all went through this. I don't know if you've heard, there's been this virus thing going on.
What are you talking about?
I'm sorry if I broke it to you. Is your daughter out of the room? I don't want to.
Well, upset. It's okay. It's coming through headphones.
Okay. No. And we've all had to make that transition from selling to servicing, to the how can we help, all of that kind of fun stuff. And that includes her. And she has been putting together a ton of resources that are, and some of them, and this is where I am a customer, I am a satisfied client. technologymarketingtoolkit.com is her website.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it may be actually available out to the general public. I'm not 100% sure. But she has been cranking out all sorts of resources, both in terms of helping companies manage with the changes, resources, and Dado's done a good job on this as well for what to do in case your organization or someone you know is in need of some economic help from the government or the like. As well as some now it's time to start making that transition where we actually do want to start marketing again, but with a very, very different message. And she's starting to produce some resources for that as well. And we're developing our own as well.
So, what other things have you that you would recommend? There's all these tools out there like, Robin Robbins and Gary Pica and like all these different experts out there. What other ones have you signed up for that you recommend?
So, first of all, is you need to do a serious assessment of what you need and what you got.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because resources that you don't need or you're not going to use are a waste of money. And right now, waste of money is not a good thing to do. Right. So if you look at it from an internal standpoint, where we're basically not doing well from a standpoint of how do we allocate our resources, our number one resource being people. So are we allocating our technicians properly? Are we doing things in a way to maximize our profitability, our performance, really? Because it gets back to we want to do more with less. We want to be more productive in terms of how many devices, how many organizations, how many employees, how many whatever can we support with as few technicians, dollars, however you want to evaluate that energy as possible. That's where I think the true methods, Gary Pica, all of that. From what I've seen, and we are Gary Pica, we actually started using them in December, where we're not fully implemented at all. But I've liked some of their stuff, and I'll probably be sticking with that for at least the rest of the year. That's where I think Gary does very well indeed. Then you have the whole question of, well, how do you market? If you're not marketing, how do you plan on growing and all that kind of fun stuff? And the one thing I will say about marketing is I am very, very suspicious about services that allow you to abdicate your marketing. In other words, if they're basically like the appointment setters, oh my God. I get so many emails, so many LinkedIn requests, so many this, that, or the other thing, who are basically going to will set your qualified leads. No. And this kind of gets back to the CEO book. Just like a CEO of one of our clients can't abdicate all aspects of technology over to MSP, internal IT, anything. I would say the same thing goes for the CEO of an MSP, cannot abdicate all aspects of marketing or sales to anybody either internal to the organization or certainly not external as a third party. And so there's a number of programs out there, and then you've also got programs like the 20, all of that kind of fun stuff, and there's other groups that are doing some of the marketing as well. It has to fit into your culture, your organization, your vision of what you need and what you want to be able to do, and then talk to your peers. Because anybody who basically says we can solve your problems, absolutely 100% guaranteed. By the way, what are your problems?
That's fair. So you're not a fan of all these, like, they almost seem like fly-by-night operations that want to sell you leads. I'm sure you get 18 offers a day from India and Pakistan to redo your website. That stuff just kind of gets old.
Well, and they're basically just throwing crap on the wall and seeing what sticks. And right. Nothing against from where they're from, because I'm getting people from the U.S. who are trying to do the same thing. I really don't care. The problem is that at the end of the day, I'm going to talk to a potential client, and I don't want to compete on price, because that's a killer. Everybody always talks about what keeps me up at night, and it's one word: commoditization. The thing that keeps me up at night above all else is the day that our service is a commodity is the day I have to compete on price. And
Now,
that's
you
horrible.
don't think that our service is already a commodity?
It absolutely is, to a certain level.
Got it.
Okay? And if we go back, because I don't know if I made this clear, I'm old. Okay?
So old.
It's incredible. He's not dead yet. So I remember you can almost start with how many devices could a technician support? And if you look at it from back in the 90s, and let's just say that the technician is an average technician, because you're going to have some who are ridiculously competent and others who are ridiculously not so much. But an average technician could not support as many devices back in the 90s as they could today. Because back then, the hardware components themselves needed managing. The video cards, the extra memory, the configuration for it, the network adapters, those couldn't be taken, you couldn't take those for granted. So our technicians weren't as good. Now, that stuff's a commodity. Nobody gives a damn about the graphics card unless you really need some graphics power, which is unusual. Usually it's, oh yeah, it's good enough. Oh, this is good enough. If I need to add more memory, I look it up online, order it, pop it in, boom, done. So
I don't have that luxury. I run Apple computers.
And that's fine. That really is. That's good for you.
Good for you, little buddy.
Yeah. Virtual pat on the head from a 6-foot distance. That's great. Communist. No, but but it's one of those where, so as the commoditization of that service rises, we then have to stay above that. So, okay, we're not going to, the desktops are commodities, so our value add is going to be the servers. Okay, servers are becoming a commoditization. Our value add is going to be the virtualization. It's going to be the high availability. It's going to be the failover. It's going to be the business continuity. So as the commoditization rises, we have to have our value add service rise as well. And that's the thing that keeps me awake, is because if we don't do that, then we start sinking into the commoditization trap.
I just thought it was all the coffee that kept you awake, Bob. You seem like you never sleep.
I'll sleep when I'm dead, which again hasn't happened yet. Who knows? Who knows why?
I just want to know, how are you so amped up? Like how much cocaine do you do?
Oddly enough, I don't drink coffee. Never have. I hate beer. And it sounds like it's a whatever. I've never done any drugs whatsoever. I'm a control freak. From the standpoint of, I am absolutely 100%. I've got to be in control, relatively speaking. And so the thought of doing any kind of drugs or whatever scares the bejeebers out of me. And that includes, I'll take ibuprofen. That's about the heaviest drug I've taken. And that's not a slam against anybody else. I mean, obviously, I've got some opinions on that. I've never really been drunk. I'll drink wine, and I drink occasionally some cider, hard cider, and that's about as far as it goes.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've never tried any drugs or anything like that either. But after being in the house 24 hours a day with my kids for the last 3-4 weeks, I'm thinking it might not be such a bad thing to start using drugs heavily.
Absolutely, and it's absolutely. When I was in college, my first time, which was back in the late 70s, early 80s, I would get invited to the parties where the drugs were flowing freely, because they knew that I wasn't going to condemn people or preach to people or whatever. I wasn't going to rat them out. And that way there would be someone who was sober and straight there in case anybody had problems. That was the dumbest decision anybody ever made, because I just had lots of fun traumatizing the stone people. and there was this great tree outside. I went to Hiram College, small, about an hour northeast of here. And there was this huge tree in pitch black. It was lit up to about 10 feet. and then it was pitch black up above it. And at 2 a.m., I would get like 15, 20 stone drunk people up in the tree as far high as they could go. And then I'd go home. You know, and that was my idea of a fun time. And
it sounds like an amazing time.
It really was. It really was.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. All right. So, you know, we've kind of lightly touched on this whole virus thing. So tell me more about this virus, Bob. How's this? No, how is your business doing right now?
It's early, and the question is not how is our business doing. The question is how are our clients doing?
Yeah.
Because as a service provider, we're fine until the clients aren't. And it's one of those where you look at the situation going on where we really have just put out our first set of monthly bills within the past week or so, because this is early April.
Yep.
And we went through the whole process of connecting with clients, say, hey, how can we help? All of that kind of fun stuff. And we're cognizant that we don't want to do too much of that. So we went through a regimen of about 2 or 3 emails to clients saying, hey, here's some specific resources. Here's something we can do. Call us. Beyond that, we've had one client who's talked to us about potential challenges for them making payments on time, and we're working with them on that. We're also doing webinars. We do 2 webinars a week on work from home issues and topics. Those are free and open to everybody. We also made it so it's available to any MSP who wants the slide deck. We'll give you the slide decks. We've got a site out that's got, I think we're up to 5 or 6 of them now. And so far, and this is my office that I'm working out of. I'm pretty much the only one here. Everybody else is working from home, although we'll get the occasional tech will come here. We've made it so that technicians aren't allowed to go on site without approval from either ops manager, tech director, or myself. You know, we're making do. How are you doing?
You know, I'm fine so far. You know, I'm in an interesting place. You know, my MSP clients, so far so good, knock on wood. My RocketMSP clients, it's like I'll be fine with RocketMSP as long as my clients are fine, as long as their clients are fine.
Right.
Because, you know, you know, it's almost like a weird MLM thing where you know, we've got the pyramid. As long as all of these people are making money, I'll be making money. Well,
and that's true. And people don't understand that at any point in time, any interruption at any part of your food chain will have an impact. And if you think about it from the standpoint of you have your client, your client's client, your client's client, as well as all of their suppliers, as well as your suppliers, as well as your employees. And you have that issue of who's the weakest link in that chain, and any one of them could be impacted, and you just don't know.
It's us, Bob. We're the weakest link.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no question. I'm not even part of a chain. I'm just a link left there on the ground.
So, how's your family doing?
Well, my wife is a nurse, as I mentioned. I mean, spoiler alert, they're all fine. Thanks for asking. My wife is a nurse, but she's a nurse at a hospital that does elective surgeries. So her time has actually gone down right now. Now, again, beginning of April. So we're at a point where we are still waiting for that curve to hit the high point, but hopefully it's happening sooner rather than later. And she, unfortunately, is extremely talented with arts and crafts and that sort of thing. And she ended up making masks. Yep.
Okay.
And she ended up doing them for the kids. And again, 2 of our daughters are nurses at NICU, so they take care of premature babies and all that kind of fun stuff. So they're busy.
Yeah, I bet they're going to be real busy in about 8 or 9 months.
Oh yeah, there's that. There absolutely is that. And then one of my daughter's husband is a police officer. And so then she had COVID. So my wife, as of this morning, I was talking to her, and she's made it like 120 masks. And she's just cranking them out. And please do not, anyone watching this, do not request masks for my wife because she will do it.
I could use like 5.
Just put in the order. She gave me a special mask. It was clear plastic. And because she wants me to be especially protected, I just have to put it all the way over my head and then tie it around the neck.
Yeah.
She said that will solve all of the health problems.
I actually saw a picture floating around. And it had a fun meme attached to it. But there was a woman riding around in one of those shopping carts for the people that can't get around too well in Walmart and stuff. So there's this woman riding around in one of these carts. She's wearing like shorts, short sleeve shirt. She's got some like dish gloves on, like the yellow rubber gloves. And then she's got a clear bag over her head tied at the neck. And why?
That's why I don't get on Tinder.
I thought it was because you were happily married.
There's that too. Well, my wife and I have, because we're both on our second marriage, and we have this agreement that if we ever do get divorced or split or whatever, that it's her responsibility to find my next wife. And this would be the kind, because she will occasionally point at someone and go, okay, that's your number 3. That's your number 3. And this woman would absolutely qualify.
So she always points at the most awful, ridiculous person and says that's your number 3.
I never thought of it that way. But yes, I suppose you could be right.
Okay. If you've never thought of it that way, Bob, then there's something wrong with you.
Where do we begin?
So am I seeing a basketball behind you?
No, it's actually a football.
Okay.
It's a Peyton Manning autographed football.
They all look like sports balls to me. Like that's.
And that's about it. And actually, Robin Robbins, she has an annual. One of the things that's really good about her organization is the peer cooperation. And one thing that she does every year is she has what's called the Better Your Best, where the MSPs will, hey, here's how we improved, and they share their stuff and all of that. And we were a finalist last year. We didn't win. Absolutely, the appropriate person won. But all of the final, Peyton Manning was the special guest speaker at the boot camp, which is
that's cool.
Quarterly. Yeah, and the finalists were given a football autographed by Peyton Manning. Now, my interest in sports sounds like it will be about with yours. Meaning none.
Yeah.
I know who the guy is, and I know he's very good, but I don't really care.
I'm so bad at sports. Is he the Deflategate guy?
No, he's the guy who does all the pizza and the State Farm commercials.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't watch commercials though.
Which actually he's very good at, and I'll give him credit for that. But apparently that's like $500 or $600 on eBay.
Well, just wait until this pandemic's over, and you might get 8 or 9.
Well, it depends on the cash flow situation. It may go sooner than that.
Yeah, but if you try selling it in like 2 or 3 months, you might only get $50 for it.
That's true.
Because that's the problem. Like, yeah, you might want to sell some things because you've got a cash flow problem.
Yeah,
but everyone else has a cash flow problem.
And there's going to be a huge, and that's actually part of the discussion that's going on through the industry right now is what do you do? So is now the time to discount? Is now the time to talk to clients who are having cash flow problems? Because if you discount now, how do you come back to your original pricing once we get through this?
So I would say that you can't. You're screwed.
Well, and part of it is how do you go through that? Because and we actually did a YouTube video on this about 2 weeks ago. The various levels of emails that we're getting from our vendors and whomever offering support and hope and prayers and all that kind of fun stuff. It is to just do a brushstroke, boom, here's our discount offering, here's our special, I think that's suicide, because you're basically saying, we were making too much money from you before. We're willing to make a little less now.
Yeah. So the one thing that I'm hearing people do is, I understand you're having some trouble. I'd be willing to work with you and, maybe waive a month, or I know one guy said, instead of the net 15 you're on, I'll give you net 90
right
for 3 months or 6 months or whatever, however long we think this is going to last. But in order to get that, you've got like 7 months left on your agreement. I need a 36-month agreement.
Right. And that's and I think that's a key thing, is that you want to try to turn it into a quid pro quo. Now, and one of the things that I think is critical is you have to know the client you're talking to, and you have to have at least a feel for what level of pain they're really at.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to kick them when they're down. You don't want to force them into something that's not going to be worthwhile.
Right.
By the same token, you want to make sure that it is something that is, this will help you, but it's not going to be a long-term thing. And I think that can even be I'll tell you what, I will give you a 30% discount, but then I'm going to look for the next 3 months, but then I want to add another 30% onto your account for 3 months starting in January. So you're basically deferring the cost or something along those lines. Because to me, at the end of the day, you want to be able, and this is because we don't do long-term contracts. Ours are 30-day out, And one of the points I always make is I want to be able to, every month, for us to look across the table and say, I'm getting value from you, you're getting value from me. In most cases, for me, the value I'm getting is money, okay? And cooperation to make sure that we're working together nicely. And I'm willing to basically put that on hold a little bit, but then I want something from you that brings it a little bit higher once we get through this. And I had that talk usually before they even sign, that whole value going both ways, because I'm not looking to screw the client, and I'm not looking for a client to look to screw us. It's kind of like the guy you were talking about at the beginning, would never be, then that's why we pawned him off on you, sucker. Is if you can't see that two-way relationship of giving each other value and making us at the end of the day going, we got a good relationship, there's value there. If all you're going to do is just look at it from the standpoint of how much do we pay, that's too much. It's not going to be a good fit. And the only thing worse than a good client getting away is a bad client not.
Oh boy. So I really like the way you're thinking about this, and I'm the idiot that keeps his news notifications on during a pandemic. I just got a notification, and I can't find the blasted thing. But here it is. Here's some great news, Bob. The U.S. is breaking records.
USA.
We're making new records. The daily U.S. death toll topped 1,800 yesterday. Some officials are hopeful the country's curve may be flattening. And then I saw somewhere else where, let's see, WHO head says it disappeared.
Well, and in other news, Bernie Sanders dropped off. So obviously the two of them are linked.
This is all Biden's fault. Trump should have kept that investigation into Biden going.
There you go.
Because reasons.
Unfortunately, it really shouldn't be an alert, because everybody has basically been saying we're hopefully starting to flatten out. But if we're starting to flatten out on this side of it, that means the deaths are going up.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the other thing that people aren't even thinking about is, all right, so it's flattening out. So, all right, cool. We can end social distancing. No more stay at home orders. Let's all go back to work. Let's all just go back to how things were a month ago. And then all that's going to happen is We're just going to start that thing all over again, right? So and I know you're not a scientist, you're not an expert in this, but this is just two guys having a conversation at this point, Bob.
Yeah.
When do we go back to normal? Is this the new normal? Is 2 months ago, is it never going to be like that again? Well, Starbucks is closed all over Ohio, Bob.
Like, I don't care.
But I don't drink coffee either, but I really love their strawberry acai refresher. It's so delicious.
I have no idea what the hell that means.
It's just delicious.
Okay.
It's a sugary, fruity drink.
That's it, sugary, fruity, that I get. The strawberry acai.
Yeah.
Not a clue.
I'm all about the
for the pronunciation lesson.
Thank you. Yeah. My wife calls it acai. I'm like, no, it's acai. She's like, no, it's acai. So
they'll take your money either way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can we just call it a Slurpee and be done with it?
It's not like a frozen thing blended up. It's a beverage. It's a beverage.
Here's the challenge, and this is one of the things that I find absolutely fascinating. And I'm going to get a little bit technical and probably also very inaccurate on a couple of points here.
That's the only type of information I like to spread, by the way.
There you go. By and large, the human being, as we're born, from a hardware and a software standpoint, are the same critters that were born prior to the first guy who said sharp sticks are a great idea. Okay? And at that point in time, the human being was not, we were more prey than hunter. From the standpoint of we were more of a meal for animals than we were killing animals and making meals, because we just aren't good at killing animals unless, they're very small, very slow, and very stupid. Okay. And we really, from an evolutionary standpoint, haven't changed much, which means that there are two things. From an evolutionary standpoint, there are two things that human beings react to immediately. And the first one is fear. The thing that there is something that's going to kill us because we want to live. And so our that fear factor is automatic. It's there. We can't do anything about it, which means scary things scare us. Okay. And the second thing.
Impossible.
I know. But, if I hear disco, I get all clammy and I want to hide and all that because I am scared and frightened of disco.
I have the same kind of response whenever I go out for like jogs or do push-ups or sit-ups or something. It's weird. Like I start having like shortness of breath. My heart starts racing. I start sweating. It's insane. I'm actually allergic to exercise.
There you go.
So I can't exercise.
And I think that's the best solution is not to, what could go wrong with that? But so we've got fear. And then the second thing is we want to reproduce. So sex. And when you think about the two things, whenever anybody talks about marketing, whenever anybody talks about the news cycle, what is it? It's fear and sex. Those are the two things that sell. Those are the two things that get us to respond, to pay attention, to all of those kind of fun stuff. But in a way that makes sense back in the day before the pointy stick thing. And so what ends up happening is we are there for that immediate threat, and we can't, without thinking about it, which slows everything down and makes it so we're not very good at it, we can't actually analyze it to be a threat that is a longer term thing other than that big thing with claws is going to kill us. There may be a lion in the brush or anything along those lines. So from a hardware and a software standpoint, we are totally ill-prepared for this. We're totally ill-prepared for life because we've got the Madison Avenue people, we've got the companies, the businesses, the news cycles, everybody who is, oh boy, if we get people to pay attention, we're going to make more money. Maybe if we scare them. Or we put a sexy-looking person up there. So sex and violence, sex and fears, all that kind of fun stuff. And unfortunately, this whole pandemic even takes it a step further from that. We don't get it naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing about the curve, nobody understands it from a gut. We have to understand it by either A, basically accepting the fact that somebody else knows things better than we do, so we'll trust that person. Well, that's gone to hell in a handbasket. Or we understand it well enough ourselves, so we conquer our own internal fears. And the problem is going to be, is like you said, there's two ways to get over this, to get over this as a civilization. Number one is, or three ways. Number one is we stay this way forever. Not going to happen. Number two is enough people catch it so that it basically, there's the herd concept goes away and it burns itself out because it can't find other people to give to transfer the virus over. Or number three, there's a vaccine, and the vaccine is given out and distributed to enough people. Those are the only three solutions, and so it's going to be a while. And so you get that whole point. Well, okay, it burns out, it goes away. Hey, let's all go out and go places again. And it starts all over again, hopefully to a much lesser degree.
Yeah. So I'm like freaking out internally because I don't know what it is. I think maybe I'm just phlegmy, but I've got like a cough today, and it's freaking me out, man. I think I think because of this pandemic, every little thing is now making me and a lot of people paranoid and worried about things that they normally wouldn't worry about. And like, you know, here, and then here's another perfect example. You know, I've got a family member, and I don't remember if I talked about this on yesterday's recording or not, because these are all starting to blur together. But I've got a family member who, he posted about how there were, you know, all these millions of flu cases in the last, or in like this 3 or 6 month period, right, from like October to February or whatever it was that he posted. And because of all these like millions of flu cases, there were all of these millions of people that got hospitalized, and there were all these hundreds of thousands of people that died. And it worked out to be like 10,000 people a month or something like that. Like a lot of people died because of the flu in a period of time at the end of 2019 into the beginning of 2020. And he said, so, you know, people get sick. Stop being babies, you stupid liberal blah 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 blahs, and stop closing everything down and just go treat life normally. And I think I don't really, I think I used to be like a liberal person. I think I'm not now. I don't know what I am now, to be completely honest. But now I'm like, I like to think I just err towards common sense. Something that I can't do often, but so my response to him, and I didn't bother replying because I don't have the patience to get into an internet argument with somebody. It's not worth it. But my response to that type of thinking is, the reason that we haven't had that many deaths yet, when you're calling what we have right now the baby brother or whatever, the baby cousin to the flu, the reason we haven't had that many deaths is because we're staying at home. We had 1,800 people die in a single day. You don't think we couldn't have 10,000 people die in a month? And this is with people staying at home and wearing homemade masks. Like, you are a fool if you don't think that that this is a real problem.
And part of the challenge is that, again, the concepts, the average person, and it includes myself, is not going to get the nuance and the details behind the whole way that the transmission happens and all of that kind of fun stuff. And the term common sense really doesn't apply because it isn't common. This is unique. This is different. So, and yet we've gotten to the point from a society standpoint that we now tend to, we basically criticize or we don't trust expertise. We don't trust someone whose job it is to be an expert on this. And you can look at it from a climate standpoint. You can look at it from a vaccine standpoint. You can look at it from certainly the virus standpoint. You can look at it honestly from our standpoint is how many clients basically say, when we talk to them about cybersecurity, they say, oh, our company's not a target. We're not vulnerable. And we're going to say, well, no, you absolutely are, because you don't understand the complexity of the vulnerability and the tools. And then that same person who is talking about cybersecurity turns around and says, oh, we should all go out and party. Some of us will get sick. Maybe some of us will die, but it's the best thing to do. Because
we should have coronavirus parties.
There you go.
Like when we were little or when you were little and they sent you off to all your friends when someone got chickenpox.
Absolutely, because chickenpox was eminently survivable and there was no alternative. Yeah, so let's do exactly that. And why? Because that way you get it done with and you move on. The problem here is that, and we talk about the death, the percentage, which is roughly it's under 1% is whatever, but we don't talk about all of the other people who require significant health care. The respirators and all of that kind of fun stuff, which we're not prepared to do, and the exponential growth and all that. And it's the math behind all that really starts looking very, very bad to the folks who are saying, no, what we should do is we should just go ahead and suck it up and, take a virus for the team.
I don't like doing things for teams. I actually don't even like Microsoft Teams.
I was going to say, you're a Zoom guy, so that's okay. Take one for the Zoom.
What's funny is a buddy of mine, he added me to his Teams so he and I can play around with it and learn it. And I said, okay, but I'm going to add you to my Zoom. So I don't know if you even know this, but Zoom has this whole chat feature built into it. So I wish I could share this window, but I can't. It doesn't let you. So with Zoom, you can actually create channels similar to Slack or Teams. Right. And you can invite your contacts into these channels, and you can have group messages. It even has a screenshot button for people that are too dumb to figure out how to make a screenshot and then paste it into it even has that. It has a lot of things that are really similar to Slack, and I'm kind of impressed by it. I'm not going to lie. I didn't realize Zoom was as capable as it actually is.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great product. And I think they're finally nailing down some of their security issues, as well as I think one of the main things is as long as you don't let people join the meetings anonymously. I think that's one of the biggies as well. We're big on, we eat our dog food, so we're pretty much a Teams only as far as what we do and how we communicate with people.
So, earlier we were talking about co-managed, and I actually want to get back into co-managed before we wrap up.
Sure.
With co-managed, what does co-managed IT look like through Simplex IT?
So the whole concept of co-managed IT services, and if you think about it from the standpoint of really from the client standpoint, because that's what really matters, is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a relationship between the two IT organizations. And on our standpoint, what we try to do is we try to raise them up, the internal IT folks, give them access to all of our tools, all of our portals. So they can do ticketing, they can do RMM, they can do management, firewalls, all of that kind of stuff. All of the portals that we use, we give them access to in order to support their organization. So it's not one of those, because there's also what we call the silo approach. The silo approach would be, we'll do backups, you do everything else. We'll do the firewall, you do everything else, which is great, but we're starting to get into a commodity because that's easy to put in, it's easy to manage, but it's also easy to get rid of and easy to be replaced. And you're not necessarily helping that person except for in that one little area, that one little category. The other thing we often see is what we call seagulls. And seagulls are the vendors who come in out of nowhere, do a project, they'll do an upgrade, they'll do a whatever, squawk, drop a lot of crap, make a lot of noise, and then leave. And they leave the internal IT people with usually minimal support, documentation, training in order to maintain or manage it. So they got to call the seagull back every time to fix things, yada, yada, yada. In our particular case, and there's different levels of commits from our perspective, but we really want the internal IT person to basically become an extension of us in terms of they know our tools, they're using our documentation, our best practices, our scripts, all of that kind of thing to keep on doing their job. And we're an extension of theirs, meaning that if they have issues, they have challenges or the like, they can call on us. We've already got access to their network, to their stuff, so we already know what they've got. And we can split that so that you may have an IT department who's really, really good at desktops and users, not so much on servers. So we'll do a full managed service agreement from the server standpoint, from the infrastructure standpoint, but a commits level in terms of the desktops and the end users, or vice versa. And the way we do it is you have access to all the tools, you have access to all the processes we use, the portals we use. We'll give you training for that stuff as well. If you have any questions on anything you're dealing with, call us, ask us, we'll give you advice for free. No problem whatsoever, so we're not going to run up the bill. And the stuff that we're responsible for, we'll do automatically. And if you ever need to escalate something, so let's say there's something in your area that you're having a problem with, and either you don't have the time or you don't have the expertise, you want us to do it, fine, escalate the ticket. That'll be an additional billable, but they know it's billable because they're the ones who escalated it.
So what does pricing look like for co-managed IT with that type of model where you're really empowering them to operate like an MSP with all these big fancy tools? So what does pricing look like? Is it more or less than regular MSP?
It's definitely less than regular MSP because they're doing some of the work and maybe a majority of it. So if you think about it from a standpoint of, first of all, it totally depends on your pricing, because one of the things we want to do for MSPs is we want it to parallel what their current, what we call pure MSP offering is. So we don't want them to come up with something completely different, that they have to have two sales processes, two costing, pricing processes, we want it to be as integrated as possible when we talk to other MSPs. Because we are doing some coaching with MSPs on that.
Sure.
And what ends up happening is if you take a look at it from a costing standpoint, first of all, you've got your costing for your tools, your stamps, what we call, software, technology, methodologies, practices, all that kind of fun stuff. So they're still buying or they're still paying for all of those stamps because they're using them. Okay. So you include those costs. The difference is that your technicians are still engaged in terms of managing those stamps, managing those tools, but they're not engaged in terms of proactively or reactively doing the stuff. That's the job of the internal IT person. So from a cost standpoint, it's however you define that cost in your costing equation. You're not dropping it 100% because you're still offering advice. So let's say it's a full commits, okay, which means that the internal IT is responsible for working on everything. You're responsible for making sure all of the tools work, and you're responsible for giving them advice, but they're responsible for doing the work unless they escalate. And if they escalate, then they're paying for it, okay? In which case you take a look at the cost of all of the tools, you include that, you take a look at the cost of your technicians or the pricing of your cost of your technicians, and you discount that in terms of your equation by a high percentage. And by a high percentage, I mean, we may be talking 80% because you're not doing the work, but not 100% because you're still managing the tools and you're still giving advice.
See.
And then,
so if you're, we're gonna just use some basic numbers.
Sure.
If you're usually charging $200 a user for MSP services,
okay,
and I'm gonna use a lower number. I usually recommend 70% profit margin,
okay,
but we'll use 50%. just because that's an easier number to work with.
Sure.
So $100 of profit margin, and then $100 in costs.
Okay. So the first thing I would say of that $100, how much of that is your technician's time that you're including in that cost?
55.
Okay. So of that 55, I would discount that by up to like 80%.
So you're only saying discount the 55. You're not saying discount.
That's it.
You're not saying discount the 200.
Good God, no. So what we would do is, this is a great example. So you've got $100 in profit. Throw that aside. We don't care about that right now. So you've got $45 is your tool cost. Okay. $55 is your technician cost. Let's discount it 80%. So 80%, so we're going to charge 20%. So we're going to charge $11 for that. So you got $45 plus $11. So $56 is your cost. Okay. Now, how do you want to profit that? That's up to you. But that would be basically your cost to go with a full commits, which means that you're going to give them access to the tools, access to everything, blah, blah, blah. You give them some advice when stuff is coming up. But anything that they actually want you to do, you would charge extra for.
So how, and I'm not asking you for pricing and all that, but if you were to look at your profit margin on MSP services, what would you think you're at roughly?
Yeah, I would go. We're probably about 70%.
Okay. And what would you say your profit margin is on commits?
Oh, it's the same.
Okay. So you should still have the same profit margin. It's just going to be a different price because there's typically lower costs when you're doing commits. And with the commits though, there are some things that are actually going to make it cost more. Autotask or ConnectWise, whichever one you might be using, they've got their co-managed IT portal where you can give
streamline IT.
Yeah. So you got to resell
that. We include that as far as
of course, but that adds to your costs.
Absolutely.
So, some of these things will increase costs. Other things, like less time from your technicians, lower costs.
Right.
So that's all I was getting at. But the cool thing about using your PSA and giving them access to it is now they can literally just click a button on a ticket and say, "Can you guys do this for us?"
Well, but take that a step further. Also, because one of the things we always want to do is we want to try to have that stickiness factor as far as our clients go. We want them to stay with us. We want it to be a great relationship.
Would that suck if they had to lose their PSA?
Yeah. Absolutely. And do you think for a second they're going to look to anybody else to do any other projects they've got?
Yeah.
Or think, I mean, it's just one of those where you're really creating a relationship, and there's a catch to this. You're really creating a relationship where we all want success.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in it together. The client is, the internal IT folks are, and you are. So we're all working for that win-win-win situation. And you're going to know, the happiness factor, you're going to know because they're going to give you the feedback, as long as it's a good relationship and all that kind of fun stuff. And any project that comes up, you're going to get. Mm-hmm. Any add-on, you're going to get. Anything going on, there's no question you're going to get that.
Sure. And with all of that, you've got that stickiness. MSPs love stickiness, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we, literally resell them everything they've got.
Right.
That's why we start getting into more things that we probably have no business doing, like web design and VoIP phones and all this other stuff that we shouldn't be doing. I'm looking at my son as he's rocking the chair like a monster, and he knows he shouldn't be doing that right now because Daddy's recording. I love kids, Bob. I'm telling you, it's great having them home all day long.
Absolutely.
It would be even better if they were outside playing right now.
There you go. Go find the sharp stick, kid. It is a toy.
I hate kids. I love my kids, but I hate kids in general. All right. So yeah, I mean, that's why we get ourselves into things that we have no business doing. And then again, because we're becoming like okay at a lot of things instead of masters of like one or two things,
Right.
Which takes us right back to the beginning of this conversation when you said you owe that IT guy a great big apology, because the more we get ourselves involved in, the less time we have to devote to every one of those things.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we get into trouble with is by pretending that we are experts on things we're not. I am an idiot on so many things, and I'm very, very good at it. And if you look at least in my case, and I think history in general, 9 out of 10, it's the cover-up that causes the problem. And I truly believe that this planet, we're basically, it's a circle of idiots. We're all idiots.
I like that.
On topics. And it's just that when we're offering services or we're being professional on the services or the topics that we actually know something about.
We should turn that into a cover song, by the way.
I actually did. I started a group, and this was 15, 16 years ago, where we tried to make humorous videos on YouTube about technology. And we actually did one called Circle of Idiots, where we had a person berate somebody for being an idiot on something, and then that person turned around and demonstrated they're being an idiot on something else to somebody else, and then blah, 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 and it went full circle. We had Will the Circle Be Unbroken playing in the background.
Oh my! See, and I was thinking Circle of Life, turn it into a cover song, Circle of Idiots.
Yeah.
Elton John would be proud. Oh man. Well, Bob, is there anything else that you think people should know right now besides everything?
Everything, one is if you are interested in co-managed IT services, there is a Facebook group. Just look on Facebook, co-managed IT services. And I do some webinars on that stuff as well.
Nice.
The other thing is everybody often thinks of strategy as chess. It isn't. It's poker. And nowhere is truer than where we're at right now. One of the most fascinating things about the situation we're in is the lack of data. And everybody, or a lot of people, talk about lack of data as if it's the fault of somebody. And there is that, and to be sure. But more the like is we have no way of collecting the data. So the data does not exist right now, and it's not going to for a while. So all of us, in a game of chess, you see all the pieces. You know all the legal moves. There's only one player. It's a huge number of options, but it's a finite number of options. In poker, it's not. You know the player you're going against, but you don't necessarily know the strategy that's being used. And you're not going to in this situation either. So, and I actually have to go right quickly. I have a delivery at the door. So
give
me a second.
So here, let's talk about something about Bob. Bob's a great guy. I like Bob. He's it's funny listening. I'm gonna see if I can mute him real quick. So Bob also, like he said, he coaches people on the co-managed stuff. Check out his Facebook. Check out his books. You can find them on Amazon. I bet, Bob, this is going to be a really dumb question. I've always called you Bob Coppedge, but somebody recently pronounced your last name Coppedge.
It's Coppedge.
Okay. So, all right. So look up Bob Coppedge, Coppedge, on Amazon. You can get his books over there. Look him up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Tinder, Grindr. He's all over the place, man.
Absolutely. It's fine. Because my wife and I we did meet online back in 2000. We met on AOL, of all places.
Oh my gosh.
And
you used AOL?
We used AOL. She still does.
I think I'm disappointed in you. I mean, me being on AOL in 2000, I couldn't help because I was like 16, Bob, okay? I did whatever my mom told me to do. But you were at least 65 by then.
I did, yeah, but more like 105, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Actually, I can even talk about the CompuServe days or the FidoNet days. So.
Oh my gosh. I actually don't remember FidoNet. I do remember CompuServe. I remember AOL. Yeah. I remember that awful noise that would happen when you had to dial in.
Choking snake. Yep. My CompuServe was 72117.165 at CompuServe.com.
I have no idea what you just said to me. I just vaguely recall us using that for our internet provider. Yep. I also remember my mom would have us every now and then, back before the AOL days, we'd log into some BBS.
Yeah, that would be FidoNet or something along those lines.
And I have no idea why I would log into it, because I would check my mail. Newsflash, there was none. I was like 5, okay? I had 0 emails. Yep. And then I think on that FidoNet thing, it had a multi-user dungeon. Mm-hmm. And I would play this game where, like, you're in a room with a lantern and there's 3 doors. And I'm like, ooh, go through the left door. Like, and then my mom gets the bill. She's like, how long were you on that stupid game? I'm like, I don't know, like 6 hours one day. She's like, she's so mad because I didn't know that stuff costed money.
Yep. I remember.
I had no idea, man. So, Bob, this has been fun, man. Thank you for a great conversation. You are welcome back anytime. I would love to have you. Please stay safe, stay healthy. I wish you the best with your clients. If you need an introduction, I know a guy, his name's Guido. He can help you collect.
There you go. There you go.
Take care, everybody.